Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Brazil to attend the 19th G20 Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds talks with Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Abuja, discusses ways to further strengthen the ties. Prime Minister Modi addresses the Indian diaspora. US President Joe Biden allows Ukraine to use US-supplied long-range missiles for strikes inside Russia. Hezbollah media chief killed in Israeli airstrike in central Beirut. In sports, world number 1 Yannick Sinner beats Taylor Fritz to win the ATP Finals title. After concluding his successful Nigeria visit, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Brazil to attend the 19th G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro. Prime Minister in a social media post said, and I quote him, "I look forward to the summit deliberations and fruitful talks with various world leaders," and I unquote. Prime Minister Modi received a rousing welcome upon his arrival at the hotel. People from Indian community warmly welcomed Prime Minister amid chants. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was greeted by different slices of Indian culture upon his arrival at the hotel, music and dance as well as traditional spiritualism when he reached his place of stay in Rio, where he's set to attend the G20 summit. Vedic chants by a Brazilian Acharya with his disciples was also among them. DD India's Gautam Roy spoke to the Acharya after the performance. Let's listen in.
People of Indian origin from all over Brazil, from Sao Paulo, from Manaus have gathered here in Rio to greet Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he arrives in Brazil to attend the G20 summit. They are carrying the national flag and dressed in traditional attire to the best of their appearance. Let's talk to some of them.
It's a great pleasure for us to be just assembled here and meet our Honorable Prime Minister. I am really very excited. As you can see, lots of Indians with the flags.
It's a proud moment to see Modi live, and I am proud of my country and my Prime Minister.
I love India, sir.
I love you, India. Love you, Modi.
Prime Minister Modi is coming to Brazil after quite a few years, the last time in 2019. So what would you like to say to India and to its leader?
It's a very special occasion, and we hope the relation between India and Brazil grows more and more under his leadership. And he has a great ideal before us, before every humanity. So we hope, we strongly believe that it will grow more and more. And his visit is not only for India, for all the whole world is so important.
That's a sentiment really here that people of India who are staying in Brazil, they carry with them that they want to see the progress of India and Brazil together, and also the world, because it is a gathering of international leaders that the Prime Minister will be attending in Rio. That's the G20 summit, the world's 20 most powerful, the biggest economies, and a lot of hope is being generated from this meeting as well. With camera person Loknath, this is Gautam Roy in Rio, DD India.
All right, DD India's Gautam Roy joins us from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Gautam, hi. Now that the Prime Minister has arrived in Rio, he will be participating in the 19th G20 summit. Very quickly, get us more as to what do we expect to be part of the discussions when the leaders from across the G20 countries meet.
Well, lots of issues to be discussed. All the current challenges that the world faces. Because the last time the G20 summit took place, we do remember it happened in September in New Delhi itself, and the New Delhi Declaration was brought out on the first day of the summit itself. Although the issues that were taken up, they took a long while to get to a consensus among all the members, especially about the conflict in Ukraine. And then after that, the conflict in West Asia has also been added onto it. And earlier in the day, I spoke to India's G20 Sherpa, Amitabh Kant, as well, and he said that over 36 hours of intense negotiations have taken place, and yet the Sherpas and the entire leadership teams have not been able to reach a consensus on a lot of issues such as climate change, also these geopolitical conflicts that I mentioned. Although he said that a lot of things have been mostly ironed out, but then we've had things happening even on Sunday that have put it in the realm of speculation whether the members would like to change the language on these geopolitical conflicts. I'm talking about what has happened in Ukraine in terms of the attack carried out by Russia, the missile attack, and then, of course, what Joe Biden has done. It's been widely reported that he's given the clearance to Ukraine to use American weapons, deep strike American weapons against Russia as well. So these are factors that are right now weighing heavily as far as even the Rio discussions are concerned, as far as the leadership declaration is concerned. And apart from that, the issue of climate change, because of the way things have got a bit stuck in Baku at COP29, again, that is again something that perhaps would seek direction from here out of the deliberations at the G20 summit in Rio.
All right, Gautam, thank you for joining in with those details. And the 19th Heads of State and Government Summit of the Group of 20 will take place in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro. The Leaders Summit is the climax of the G20 process, and the work carried out over the year through ministerial meetings, working groups and engagement groups. The G20 adopts a Leaders' Declaration at the conclusion of the summit that states leaders' commitment towards the priorities discussed and also agreed upon during the ministerial and working group meetings. The theme of Brazil's G20 presidency is building a just world and a sustainable planet, and it strongly aligns with the priorities that India advanced in 2023. Brazil is also expected to maintain the focus on Global South priorities, ensuring continuity and progress on key issues. As a Troika member, India will play a significant role in shaping the agenda, building on the momentum from its own G20 presidency. It will be the first full G20 summit with African Union as a member, having joined during the G20 summit in New Delhi last year. India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant has expressed confidence that consensus would emerge among all member nations over the Rio Declaration on Sunday, the last day before the summit begins. Speaking to DD India's Gautam Roy, Mr. Kant said that climate and geopolitical issues still remain the key sticking points.
A quintessential part of any G20 summit is the Leaders' Declaration, which the top leaders of the 20 world's biggest economies, they take a position on the key issues that confront the world at the moment. It was a major success for Delhi last year when the Delhi Declaration came out on the first day of the summit itself. How is it going this time? Let's find out from the person who was part and parcel of the process last time as well and essential for a consensus. Amitabh Kant, G20, India's G20 summit with us. Mr. Kant, how is it going this time around?
It's very tough, very intense, very complex. Discussions are going on. We've had about 36 hours of non-stop negotiations. Complex issues are climate, the complex issues are geopolitics, but we were able to solve it during New Delhi Leaders' Declaration. You saw consensus all over, and we are hopeful that we'll help Brazil, assist and support them to arrive at a consensus. India will play a very key and a critical role in assisting and supporting Brazil.
Is it climate finance, and on when you mention geopolitics, is it Gaza, Ukraine, both, either?
So climate is complex because this is for the first time that COP discussions are also going on in Baku. We don't want to do anything which will impact Baku, because Baku, the COP under UNFCCC gets into very detailed discussions and deliberations. We should be ambitious, we should be high level, we should be leaders like. Bring in the vision of the Prime Minister here, but under no circumstances should we impact the ongoing discussions in Baku, so we are being very careful. And secondly, geopolitics is tough right now because during India's time we had the challenge of Russia-Ukraine crisis, which we addressed and for the first time arrived at a consensus document. But now you have a conflict in Middle East where there's a huge humanitarian crisis. So all these issues are being discussed. Today will probably be the last round of discussion, and hopefully we should find some solution by the end of the day.
Sounds great. Thank you for joining us. And so there you have it, Amitabh Kant saying that still now things have not been worked out for the leaders' declaration. But although climate and the issues of geopolitics in both Gaza and West Asia remain contentious matters, he's quite confident that a consensus will emerge before the leaders meet for the G20 summit in Rio. With camera person Loknath, this is Gautam Roy, Rio, Brazil, TD India.
Bilateral trade between India and Brazil was $14 billion in 2022. While India has invested over $20 billion in Brazil, the corresponding figure for Brazil's investments in India is just about 10% of that amount. TD India's Gautam Roy spoke with India's Honorary Consul General in Rio and India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce founder Leonardo Amanda Gomes about what is being done to ensure both mutual trade and investments grow further. Let's listen in.
Trade, tariffs, investments are always part of any G20 conversation when the leaders meet, and this is what is expected this time around as well in Brazil's Rio for the 19th G20 summit. And we have with us Leonardo Amanda Gomes, who's India's Honorary Consul General in Rio and also the founder and CEO of India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for speaking to DD India. Leonardo, what can you tell us about how is the level of trade and investment right now between India and Brazil, and what does it reflect about the kind of track that trade and investment is following in the world as well?
We are facing the best moment for India-Brazil relationship. You know, I'm working to foment this relationship since 2003, when we create this association. It's a private association, the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, but of course we are always working with the support of the Indian Embassy here in Brazil, and of course the support of the Brazilian Embassy in New Delhi as well. We are working in many sectors, and we have a huge potential. But in my opinion, we are just starting. Okay, so we are to foment this relationship. We are always organizing delegations, official delegations and business delegations. Last year, we have organized more than 25 Brazilian delegations to India, from many states of Brazil and from many sectors. Every year we have a very important one in the pharmaceutical sector, for instance. Every year we have another delegation from the IT sector. Every year we have another delegation from the oil and gas sector.
Investment is a point where India has invested far more in Brazilian companies
Much more.
and enterprise than Brazil. Why is that the case, and how can that be changed?
Yes, we have a lot of great investments from the Indian side here in Brazil for many sectors.
Cumulatively $20 billion from India?
Almost, because we have one huge investment from the oil and gas sector, more than $5 billion.
And from Brazil, it's $2 billion.
Around 2 billion. We have some good companies there, but it's increasing now. In the middle of this year, we had a very important delegation. They went to Delhi with our Minister of Foreign Affairs. And during that meeting, there was a round table, and during that meeting, it was announced new investments from important Brazilian companies.
Wonderful. And you have a personal India connect as well?
Yes. My great-grandfather was born in Goa. Goa was a Portuguese colony. So he was born in Panjim, and he came to Minas Gerais state to work with precious stones. So when he came, he decided to create, it's a very nice story, he decided to create an association with the name of Friends of India. India It's in our heart. It's our family heart. Thank you
There
very
you
much.
have it. So that's the way things are going between India and Brazil, and there is of course a lot of scope to do much more where trade investments are concerned. But an effort is sincerely being made, and it will bear fruit sooner or later. With current person Loknath, this is Gautam Roy, Rio, Brazil, DD India.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held talks with Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Abuja. Both the leaders discussed ways to further strengthen the ties. 3 MOUs were signed, and the next report gets us more.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held talks with the Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Abuja on Sunday. The two leaders reviewed the ongoing bilateral cooperation and discussed ways to further strengthen the India-Nigeria strategic partnership.
नाइजीरिया के साथ अपनी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप को हम उच्च प्राथमिकता देते हैं। रक्षा, ऊर्जा, आर्थिक विषय, टेक्नोलॉजी, हेल्थ, एजुकेशन, कल्चर जैसे कई क्षेत्र ऐसे हैं में हमारा सहयोग मजबूत है और अनेक नई संभावनाएं भी हमारे इस संबंधों में जुड़ी हुई है।
The two leaders also discussed global and regional issues. PM offered India's experience in agriculture, transportation, affordable medicine, renewable energy and digital transformation to Nigeria. The two leaders also discussed enhancing defense and security cooperation. They reaffirmed their commitment to jointly fighting terrorism, piracy and radicalization.
आतंकवाद, अलगाववाद, पायरेसी या ड्रग तस्करी जैसी चुनौतियों से निपटने के लिए हम मिलकर काम करते रहे हैं और मजबूती से हम आगे भी करते रहेंगे।
The two leaders had a restricted meeting which was followed by delegation-level talks. Prime Minister recalled his warm meeting with President Tinubu at the G20 summit in New Delhi. He noted that the two countries enjoy special bonds of friendship defined by a shared past, common democratic values and strong people-to-people ties. President Tinubu thanked Prime Minister for India's timely assistance with relief material and medicines. Following the talks, 3 memoranda of understanding on cultural exchange program, customs cooperation and survey cooperation were signed. Nigeria conferred the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger on India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, making him the second foreign dignitary to receive this prestigious award.
मैं इस सम्मान को विनम्रता और आदर भाव से स्वीकार करता हूं और इस सम्मान को 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों और भारत नाइजीरिया की गहरी मित्रता को समर्पित करता हूं।
Earlier, upon arrival at the State House, Prime Minister was accorded a ceremonial welcome with a 21-gun salute. With Vishal Baristo, Sudhakar Dasu's report for DD India.
The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has issued a stark call to action, urging G20 nations to wield their influence in addressing critical global crises. Speaking from Rio de Janeiro on Sunday, he urged the G20 nations to wield their unparalleled influence to address urgent global challenges. He also stressed on the urgency of climate action, warming of catastrophic consequences if major economies fail to act. He also emphasized the need for peace in Gaza, Ukraine and Sudan.
And I have come to Rio with a simple message. G20 leaders must lead. And G20 countries, by definition, have tremendous economic clout and they yield massive diplomatic leverage. They must use it to tackle key global problems.
Heads of state continue arriving in Rio de Janeiro for the Leaders' Summit. Arrivals included French President Emmanuel Macron, Chinese President Xi Jinping, Argentine President Javier Milei, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Chilean President Gabriel Boric. Brazil has deployed troops, armored vehicles and naval ships to reinforce security around the summit of leaders from the Group of 20. US President Joe Biden also arrived in Rio de Janeiro on Sunday for the G20 summit, while the COP29 summit in Baku, Azerbaijan, is tasked with agreeing to a goal to mobilize hundreds of billions of dollars for climate. Leaders of the Group of 20 major economies, half a world away in Rio, are holding the purse strings. G20 countries account for 85% of the world's economy and are largest contributors to multilateral development banks, helping to steer climate finance. Joe Biden became the first sitting US president to visit the Amazon rainforest on Sunday, flagging the dangers of global warming, often dismissed by President-elect Donald Trump. Biden also went to the Museum of Amazon in Manaus, where he met with indigenous leaders who want to protect the rainforest. He flew from Lima, Peru to Manaus, Brazil to meet with local leaders working to preserve the rainforest. Biden was accompanied by Brazilian scientist and Nobel Prize winner Carlos Nobre. Biden also signed a proclamation designating International Conservation Day. In his 4-hour stop in Manaus, Biden announced an additional $50 million contribution to the Amazon Fund, bringing the U.S. commitment to $100 million. United States President Joe Biden's administration has for the first time permitted Ukraine to use the US-supplied long-range missiles for striking inside Russia. With 2 months left in office, the president has authorized the Ukrainian military to use the system known as ATACMS, that is ATACMS, to help defend its forces in the Kursk region of Russia. The development marked a significant change in the policy of the United States in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The weapons are likely to be used in response to North Korea's decision to send thousands of troops to Russia in support of Russian President Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine plans to conduct its first long-range attacks in the coming days without revealing details due to operational security concerns. For months, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been urging that the restrictions on the missiles be lifted, allowing Kyiv to strike outside its own borders. On Sunday, Zelensky reacted to the report, saying that such things are not announced. Missiles speak for themselves.
Today there's a lot of talk in the media about us receiving permission for respective actions, but strikes are not carried out with words. Such things are not announced. Missiles will speak for themselves. They certainly will. Glory to Ukraine.
Russia has carried out its largest air attack on Ukraine in months, launching missiles and drones that killed several people and caused severe damage to the power system. A Russian missile strike killed 8 people in the northeastern Ukrainian city of Sumy on Sunday. After the country suffered a massive attack a night before. Ukrainian President Zelensky condemned the initial attack on Telegram. The Ukrainian Presidential Services released a video that showed emergency services at the scene tackling a fire near a residential building. The attack on Sumy follows a large-scale attack on energy infrastructure across the country the night before. Following the attack, Ukraine announced that it would be introducing nationwide emergency power restrictions on Monday. United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres said that a permanent escalation must be avoided in Ukraine. Guterres' statement came after Joe Biden's administration allowed Ukraine to use US-made weapons to strike deep into Russia.
And progress on poverty and hunger.
Firstly, our position has been very clear regarding the needs to avoid a permanent escalation of the Ukraine war. We want peace, but we want peace with justice, in line with the resolutions of the General Assembly, with the Charter of the United Nations, and with international law.
All right, DD India's Amit Mukherjee joins us for more. Amit, good morning. Now, the United States President has given his go-ahead for the first time to Ukraine to use the US-supplied long-range missile for striking inside Russia. How serious or how grave is this, and what consequences or fallout will it have on the conflict?
Well, Preeti, the action comes exactly close to the heels of the fact that, the attack, which was the airstrikes which were carried out by Russia in Sumy, which you pointed out earlier. Basically, I mean, attacked multi-storied building, and apparently some lives were lost. And this decision from the US administration to allow Ukraine to use these deep strike missiles, which are basically ATACMs. Now, these ATACMs are, army tactical missile systems which have capabilities to strike about 300 kilometer at a 300 kilometer range. Now, earlier they were only allowed to use the HIMARS, which are again high mobility artillery rocket systems, which US administration had approved Kyiv to use, against Russia. But they had very limited striking capability of about 50 kilometers, 50 miles, in fact. So this move now comes at a time, also when the G20 summit is happening, and the focus will completely be on this particular issue, on the Russia-Ukraine conflict right now. And also it has come at a time when, President-elect Donald Trump has just won the US elections with a landslide victory, and in fact, in one of his major slogans have been, seeking presidency on the pretext that he will be able to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. So all these things put together, this has come at a very, very crucial time. G20 discussion, of course, and of course, just barely 2 months away from President-elect Trump taking over the office of the US administration. So a lot of speculations are, of course, happening whether it's a it's a good move or not, because Western allies have always been asking the US to approve the use of these deep strike missiles for Ukrainian defense. But again, a lot of skepticism is there, a lot of speculations whether this is going to alter the dynamics on ground. In fact, President Zelensky has also been quite restrained, and I think the words which is coming out as to how much ammunition will the US be able to supply to Ukraine to carry out all these strikes. And also there's a fear that this move might escalate the ongoing tension, because it might just expand the scope of the war. As it is, Ukraine have been, the Russia and Ukraine war has gone beyond the borders of these two countries, with the Korean troops being deployed at the front line by Russia against Ukraine, and also the support of the Western allies. So, I mean, this has definitely some potential to, widen the scope of this war, but a lot of people are again of the opinion that it is not going to create much of difference, except for proving to be some sort of a deterrent for Russia, which of course time will only say. Preeti?
All right, Amit, we'll leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. Turning focus to the West Asia crisis now, Hezbollah has confirmed the death of its media relations chief Mohammed Afif in an Israeli strike on Sunday in central Beirut. Israel has rarely hit senior Hezbollah personnel who do not have clear military roles, and its airstrikes have mostly targeted Beirut's southern suburbs, where the group has its heaviest presence. Israel's military, which earlier declined to comment, issued a statement late on Sunday reporting it had eliminated Afif. Now, the Lebanese Health Ministry said that the strike had killed 1 and injured 3. A second separate strike later on Sunday hit Mar Elias Street, another central area, killing at least 2 people and injuring 22 others. Schools and higher educational institutions in Beirut and surrounding areas have also been shut to exercise caution. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, campaigning for the second and the final phase in East India's Jharkhand to end today. Polls in this phase to be held on November 20th. Owing to hazardous pollution levels in the city, Delhi government announces discontinuation of physical classes for all students except classes 10th and 12th. Badrinath Dham closes for winter, and with this year's Char Dham Yatra also comes to an end.
G20 meeting taking place in Rio on the 18th and 19th of this month. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating here as well, along with the leaders of the world's 20 largest economies, who will be deliberating on key issues such as eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development. For all the latest on the 2024 G20 summit in Rio, join me, Gautam Roy, only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories now. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Brazil to attend the 19th G20 Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds talks with Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Abuja, discusses ways to further strengthen the ties. Prime Minister addresses Indian diaspora. US President Joe Biden allows Ukraine to use US-supplied long-range missiles for strikes inside Russia. Hezbollah media chief killed in Israeli airstrike in central Beirut. And in sports, world number 1 Yannick Sinner beats Taylor Fritz to win the ATP Finals title. Argentine President Javier Milei received his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron at the Casa Rosada on Sunday, where they held a meeting. During their meeting, Milei and Macron addressed issues such as Argentina's rejection of the climate consensus and France's rejection of the European Union Mercosur agreement. Macron arrived in Argentina with his wife, Brigitte Macron, for a 2-day working visit. Meanwhile, French people in Argentina protested outside the presidential palace on Sunday to oppose Macron's meeting with Milei. Macron left for Brazil on Sunday afternoon to participate in the G20 summit.
Significativo encuentro entre ambas naciones.
Tensions are rising across France as farmers prepare for nationwide protests on Monday against a potential trade deal between the European Union and South America's Mercosur bloc. French farmers set up a camp as they blocked a road near Paris on Sunday in protest over the EU-Mercosur deal. The crisis follows earlier discontent fueled by cheap import from Ukraine, worsened by rain-damaged harvests, livestock disease, and delays in promised reforms after months of road-blocking protests. Farmers fear a Mercosur deal with flood markets with cheaper, pesticide-laden products outlawed in Europe. Demonstrations beginning Monday aim to pressure the government amid fears for tens of thousands of struggling farms. As rallies spread, President Macron reiterated his opposition to the agreement, but with rural discontent simmering, the government faces an uphill battle to quell the unrest. Counting has begun in Senegal as voters concluded their legislative elections on Sunday. Counting of votes is taking place under the watchful eyes of observers and party representatives. More than 7 million registered voters participated in selecting 165 members for the National Assembly from 41 parties and coalitions. Economic concerns dominated the election, with inflation and high youth unemployment among the key issues driving voters to the polls. The ruling party, PASTEF, faces stiff competition from an alliance led by former Prime Minister Macky Sall's APR coalition and other opposition groups. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye hopes the elections will give his party the majority needed to implement vital economic reforms. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un has issued a stark call to action, urging the nation's military to significantly enhance its war-fighting capabilities. Addressing a high-level conference of battalion commanders in Pyongyang, Kim warned that tensions with the US, South Korea and their allies have reached an unprecedented crisis point, calling the Korean Peninsula the world's biggest hotspot. His speech comes amid growing international alarm over North Korea's deepening military ties with Russia. Reports claim over 10,000 North Korean troops are aiding Moscow's war in Ukraine, with some allegedly engaged in combat near the Ukrainian border. Kim emphasized that the military must prepare for modern warfare, calling for urgent improvement to their readiness as global tensions escalate. Super typhoon Man-yi swept across the Philippines' main island of Luzon on Sunday, threatening heavy rains in the capital, Metro Manila. The typhoon has triggered more than 1 million evacuations and damaging buildings in several areas. Videos from the Coast Guards showed homes being evacuated in the strong winds and workers clearing the roads. Packing winds weakened slightly after hitting land in the town of Panganiban on Saturday night to arrive over the coastal waters of Camarines North Province. Man-yi is an unprecedented fourth typhoon to hit the Philippines in less than 2 weeks. The storm's course is projected to be farther south than the previous 3 typhoons, thus impacting many more people. The swearing-in ceremony for the new cabinet of the Sri Lankan government will be held on Monday at the Presidential Secretariat in the presence of President Dissanayake. Local media reports suggest that the President plans to appoint a 23-member cabinet, retaining the key portfolios of defence and finance under his leadership. According to the reports, Dr. Harini Amarasurya is set to be reappointed as Prime Minister, while Vijitha Herath will continue in his role as the Foreign Minister. The ruling National People's Power Alliance won a landslide at the parliamentary elections, winning 159 out of 222 seats, increasing their tally from 3 seats. Earlier in September, NPP leader Dissanayake won the presidential election, riding on an anti-corruption and economic reforms campaign. All right, DD India's Dr. Ahmed Moin Farooqi joins us from Colombo. Ahmed, good morning. Now, we've just given a broad outline of who is expected to make it to the cabinet of the president, but you get us the details. What are you picking up?
Preeti, very good morning to all of our viewers. Yes, the swearing-in ceremony is scheduled to be held today morning at around 10 a.m. at the Presidential Secretariat. The President has constantly said that the ministerial allocation, the allocation of the portfolios in his cabinet will be done on a very, very scientific basis. He has assured that he will identify people on the basis of their expertise and their merit, and not on the basis of personal contacts, which has been alleged to have happened in the previous regimes in Sri Lanka. Preeti. That apart, if you remember, immediately after President Dissanayake had assumed office, he had appointed a 3-member cabinet, which included him, Dr. Harini Amarasurya as the Prime Minister, and Mr. Vijitha Herath, who had under his command several key portfolios, including Foreign Ministry, Public Security, and several others. Now, this will be an excellent opportunity for the NPP government, the new government, to go ahead and design and plan a cabinet which can cover all the ministries in a very scientific manner. That said, it is very important to note here that almost all the NPP parliamentarians, barring 3, are people who are first-time parliamentarians who have no experience in any manner whatsoever in the parliament or in positions as minister or deputy minister. That will be a very key important point to be noted here, because without expertise and any prior experience, they might have some initial issues with regard to adjusting and adapting to their roles in their new positions. However, it is also important to note that apart from these ministers, 23 ministers which have been informed so far, there's also going to be positions such as 28 deputy ministers will be appointed. And the President has said that wherever there are big ministries, there will be a possibility of appointing more than 1 deputy minister, so that the work can be shared between them. But till that time, the entire details of the portfolios, what will be announced, that has not been disclosed yet. Most probably we'll be able to get the details once the swearing-in ceremony is completed.
All right. So once the swearing-in ceremony will be completed, more clarity will be there. But then, Ahmed, help us understand what are the challenges for the new dispensation there, though not new. But then what would be the challenges ahead, ending corruption, bringing the economy on track, dealing with the domestic crisis and the problems that faced after the turmoil that was witnessed in 2022. Put all this together, what challenges are up the sleeves of the dispensation there?
Preeti, you see, you rightly mentioned the economic issues had been high on the cards during the election campaign. That said, the issues of allegations regarding corruptions and corrupt practices, corrupt policies by previous regimes, they will be high on the agenda of the government, and they will plan to initiate corrective steps in this regard by probably bringing in more measures to curtail corruption, as well as bring in more transparency in the government. In addition to that, the government has talked about bringing in and initiating several investigations into the past actions by the previous governments. Meanwhile, it is also important to note that yes, 2022 during the year, it was the peak of the economic crisis which Sri Lanka was reeling under. Of course, the effects of it exist even to this day in the manner that food and fuel prices are pretty high, much higher than what used to be before 2022. And that has been one of the key issues which people have talked about. And the campaigns of NPP had talked about bringing down the fuel prices, electricity tariffs, and many other things. And this will be something which will be keenly looked at, because the new government will have to deliver on their promises which they have made during the election campaign, as well as included in their manifesto. And that is something which people have been hoping that some decision on this would come out immediately after the parliament starts getting convened. And that is anyway scheduled to happen later this week on 21st of this month. But once all these activities are started, thereafter the government will face its challenges with regard to, on one end, balancing the IMF deal, and on the other end, curtailing and relaxing the austerity measures, which they have already promised that they would be doing. So it is going to be a very tough task for the government, but it needs to be seen how they will find alternative revenues for the government. Preeti.
All right, Ahmed, we'll leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. And back home, with pollution reaching alarming levels, the Centre's panel monitoring Delhi NCR air quality has announced to impose stage 4 restrictions under Graded Response Action Plan, that is GRAP, from Monday. The air quality in the capital remained in the severe category for the past few days, despite restrictions under GRAP, prompting authorities to impose stringent anti-pollution measures. The new set of restrictions would come into force from 8 a.m. on Monday. The restrictions under the GRAP 4 include stop entry of truck traffic into Delhi, except for trucks carrying essential items. Do not permit LCVs registered outside Delhi other than EVs, CNG, BS6 diesel to enter Delhi. Enforce strict ban on plying of Delhi-registered BS4 and below diesel-operated medium goods vehicles and heavy goods vehicles in Delhi, except those carrying essential commodities. Banning of construction and demolition activities as in the GRAP Stage 3, also for linear public projects such as highways, roads, flyovers, overbridges, power transmission, pipelines, telecommunication, etc. NCR state governments or GNCTD to take a decision on allowing public, municipal and private offices to work on 50% strength and the rest to work from home. Central government may take appropriate decision on permitting work from home for employees in central government offices. Children, elderly and those with respiratory, cardiovascular, cerebrovascular or other chronic diseases to avoid outdoor activities and stay indoors as much as possible. Delhi Chief Minister Atishi on Sunday announced the discontinuation of physical classes for all students except classes 10th and 12th. The development comes hours after Delhi's air quality deteriorated further to severe plus, prompting the authorities to impose GRAP 4 restrictions in the national capital. The CAQM suggested online teaching for the students of classes 6th to 9th and class 11th. Let's get to updates on state assembly elections. Now, campaigning for the second and the final phase in East India's Jharkhand will end on Monday evening. 38 constituencies will go to polls in this phase on November 20th. Campaigning will also end today for the single phase of polling in Maharashtra. Voters in the West Indian state will exercise their franchise in the single phase polling on Wednesday. Counting for both Jharkhand and Maharashtra will be held on November 23rd. Results are also expected to be declared the same day. The doors of Sri Badrinath Dham, located in northern state of Uttarakhand, have been closed for winters on Sunday. With the closing of the doors of Badrinath, this year's Char Dham Yatra has also come to an end. The doors were closed with Vedic rituals and religious traditions amid the chanting, while the doors of Gangotri Dham were closed for winters on November 2nd. Meanwhile, the doors of the second Kedar Mad Maheshwarji will be closing on November 20th. A quick look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. With the onset of winter season, Pobithora Wildlife Sanctuary in Assam's Morrigaon district has witnessed a surge in arrival of migratory birds. And this year, migratory bird arrival has started from early November. The arrival of migratory birds has been initiated to the Pobithora Wildlife Sanctuary, which is also known as the home of one-thorned rhinoceros. Meanwhile, migratory birds have started their annual journey as the onset of winter begins. More than 65 species of exclusive migratory birds arrived in eastern Indian state of Odisha, Chilika Lake in mid-November. Glossy ibis, purple moorhen, pintail, goodwit, great egret, medium egret, bronze-winged jacana, black-winged stilt, cormorants and various other kinds of birds were seen. A short break ahead, but after the break, we'll get you more. Semi-final lineup of Women's Asian Hockey Championship trophy decided. India will face Japan in the semi-finals, while China and Malaysia will face each other. Thousands of marathon runners gather in Havana to celebrate the capital's 505th anniversary. Stay with us for a visual delight that enthralled onlookers in France.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome to Jaipur.
I'm on a quest to explore the history of Goa. A land steeped in diverse and intersecting cultures and traditions.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's talk of sports now. We'll talk of tennis first. Home favourite and world number one Yannick Sinner became the first Italian to win the ATP Finals title following a dominant 6-4, 6-4 victory over American Taylor Fritz on Sunday. Sinner lost the last year's final to Novak Djokovic. However, he did not put a foot wrong this time around as he finished undefeated and without dropping a set to earn the title. In a rematch of this year's US Open final, the 23-year-old Sinner broke Fritz's serve with a fine drop shot to take a 4-3 lead before notching the opener with his 10th ace in the match. Fritz is the first American finalist since 2006, but his stellar performance also had a dropped serve in the second set, which allowed the Italian to seal the contest in an hour and 25 minutes. On to hockey now. Defending champions India will face Japan in the semi-finals of the Women's Asian Hockey Champions Trophy on Tuesday, while China will play third-placed Malaysia in the other last 4 games. Earlier, the women's hockey team beat Japan 3-0 in its final pool match on Sunday. Navneet Kaur broke the deadlock in the third quarter, while Deepika Kumari converted 2 penalty corners to secure a resounding win. India have finished at the top of the standings with a perfect record of 15 points from 5 matches. Also, Japan finished 4th with 5 points to take the last semi-final berth. Thousands of marathon runners gathered in Havana for the annual Marabana Marathon on Sunday, traversing routes set against the backdrop of the Cuban capital's most iconic landmarks. Approximately 2,300 runners from 46 countries took on the challenge of the 10,000, in fact 10, 21 or 42-kilometer races in the 38th edition of the Caribbean Islands' premier marathon event. The Marabana Marathon this year was dedicated to the 505th anniversary of Havana. Portugal trained in the coastal city of Split ahead of their upcoming UEFA Nations League match against Croatia, aiming to secure an additional 3 points in their unbeaten run. Portuguese defender João Cancelo remains confident in the team's ability to perform despite top players Cristiano Ronaldo, Pedro Neto and Bernardo Silva and Bruno Fernandes being released from the match by the manager. Meanwhile, Croatia is not taking the match lightly. The team's coach Zlatko Dalic stressed that they will not be playing for a draw despite needing only a point to progress to the quarterfinals. Portugal is already assured of a quarterfinal spot and currently lead their group unbeaten with 13 points and sit 6 clear of Croatia, who suffered a 1-0 defeat against Scotland. Spain's rider Jorge Martin claimed his first Moto Grand Prix World Championship title after he finished 3rd in the season-ending Solidarity Grand Prix in Barcelona on Sunday. The race was won by his title rival Francesco Bagnaia. Martin headed into the final race of the season with 19 points lead, and the Spaniard needed to finish in the top 9 to clinch the title. Bagnaia had done everything to close the gap in the title race, including victory in the final Grand Prix, which was his 11th win of the season. But Martin's 32 podium finishes in the season earned him the title by 10 points. France's National Museum organized a light show at the Paris Garden for this winter season with the theme of the Jurassic period. The light show will remain open until 19 January next year for the public. Alright, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can download the respective QR codes. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us at in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.